Let's dive into toddler tantrums, big feelings, and meltdowns. Brushing teeth can be one of those things that is a struggle every single night. Little tiny elastics that can be very tricky to get out. I've put an elastic in my hair to show you guys how I do this. This has been like a life-saving game that has just saved me in those moments. I have 25 hacks to go through, so we're gonna do this rapid fire. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Beth, and today I'm going to be sharing 25 toddler hacks that are going to make your life 10 times easier. This is a continuation of the newborn hacks video that I posted. I have been collecting some of the tips and tricks that have made just parenting a toddler in general a lot easier for me, because it is no secret that the toddler stage can be a challenging time. I have a young toddler myself. She is currently 2 years old and is going through all of the things that are very developmentally normal for toddlers. They're starting to crave more independence. Any sort of transition can feel like a battle. Big feelings are very common, and sometimes it's just hard to know what to do to get them to listen. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some of the different toddler parenting hacks that work for us, and I'm also really excited to be working with my friends over at Kiwico on this video. They have a special offer for viewers of my channel, so if you want to hear more about that, then just keep on watching. All right, I have 25 hacks to go through, so we're gonna do this rapid fire. And the first hack that I have is to save certain chores for when your toddler is around or awake and can actually help. I find that you will have more time for yourself to actually do the things that you really want to do if you focus on doing some of the things around the house while your toddler is still there and can actually witness you doing those things. The other reason that I have found this helpful is because it has given my toddler a sense of responsibility and ownership over the things that we are doing in our house to keep it functioning, but it also builds their confidence in the sense that it allows them to feel capable of doing certain tasks that they see grown-ups doing all the time. Really quick example of this is something like emptying the dishwasher or loading clothes into the washing machine. If you involve your toddler in little things like these, it will be a great learning opportunity for them, but it will also keep you from having to catch up on all of the grown-up things that you need to do when they are asleep. Next hack is to make meals together in a learning tower. I don't know how I would get 3 meals a day cooked without the learning tower. I find that before it's out and before she's into it, she's just constantly asking to be up, and a lot of the times it's really just because she wants to see what's going on the level that I am at. And so having your toddler in the learning tower is a great way to kind of show them the process of what you're doing when you're cooking, which is another great learning opportunity, but it's also just a great time for bonding together. And a side benefit that I have found from this is that while we're preparing whatever meals we're preparing, she often wants to snack on things while they're being made, and so this is a really great time to sneak veggies into their diet as well if you're kind of dicing them up for your meal. And so across the board, the learning tower has just been such a game changer for our family, and I highly recommend it for your toddler. The next hack is to give your toddler options. Now, this is not about presenting a gajillion different scenarios to them and then having them choose something, because I feel like that would be overwhelming for anyone, especially a toddler, but it's about really simply holding firm boundaries and saying, this is the thing that's going to happen. Now, do you want X or Y to make that thing happen? So for example, when it comes to things like going down for nap time or quiet time or bedtime, if it's a really hard transition to get your toddler away from what they're doing into that space, oftentimes presenting an option is a really great way to do that. And so what I typically say is, okay, it's time to go to your room now. Would you like to walk, or do you want me to carry you there? And literally those simple options give your toddler a small sense of control and feeling like they now get to make a decision for themselves. And so this has saved us so many meltdowns when it has come to things like transitions throughout the day. When it comes to transitions, and again, that is something like having to put their toys down and go into their room for bedtime. These are all very challenging moments for toddlers because they really do feel so out of control in those moments a lot of the time. And so my next hack is to prepare your child as much as possible for a transition before it actually happens. There are 2 ways that I typically do this. The first is just a verbal cue to let my child know that a transition is coming, and often the language that I use for this is prepare your heart. You don't need to say it that way, but that's just what I say to my toddler, because for her, she can just get so overwhelmed and sad. And so I let her know, okay, it's time to prepare our heart to do this next thing. The other thing that I will do if I need more of a firm and visual cue and the verbal isn't working is I'll actually set a timer. And so she can see that timer going down if I show it to her, but she also will hear the sound of the alarm going off when the timer is done, which is another kind of signal that that, okay, you've been prepared for this, you knew that this was coming, you heard the sound, and now it's time for us to move on. The next hack is about a toddler transition that you can't necessarily control, and that is how your toddler is feeling when they wake up either from a nap or from their nighttime sleep. One hack that I know can be challenging to put into place but has been so helpful for our family is having myself up and ready before my toddler and also getting breakfast started. I think a really hard thing for toddlers is that when they wake up, they're not great at putting themselves back to sleep if they're still feeling tired and they're not actually ready to be awake yet. It's a nice transition in the morning for her to come out of her room and to have something to eat, because another thing is that when toddlers are sleeping, their blood sugar is dropping, and that often does naturally lead to grumpiness. So having something ready to go for breakfast, whether that is something quick that you make or something that's in the freezer that you can take out and just warm up, that will always make my morning 10 times easier. My next hack is very related, and it's to have a snack and water already prepped and ready to go for when they come out of their nap. So this is something that I have been doing, and I found that has just totally changed the trajectory of the afternoon. I discovered that a lot of the time she's just hungry and wants a snack right after she wakes up. It can literally be like fruit slices or anything like that, but it has really just made that transition out of nap time a lot easier than it was before. The next hack around sleep is having a consistent bedtime routine. Before we kind of aligned on all of the steps that we both do before bedtime was a struggle because there would be certain things that he would do at bedtime that I would then not do, or certain things that I would do that he wouldn't do that my toddler would be asking for and he wouldn't really know what they were. I also think that this can be helpful in avoiding some of the things like a preference for a certain parent to do bedtime, because there was a while where I would often sing Vivian down to sleep, and that is not something that my husband would do. And so we had to really just align on all of the practices and the routines so that we could both be doing the same thing. And I feel like it has removed some of that preference of, oh, I want mom to do bedtime or I want dad to do bedtime tonight. So I highly recommend staying as consistent as possible. My next hack is especially helpful for any parents who still have a toddler that is in diapers or is in the process of transitioning out of them and might still be having some accidents here and there, especially when it comes to poop. Now, I haven't formally named this game, but I guess you could call it like hands on your blank. Essentially, it's an opportunity for language development, but also to keep your children's hands away from the poop. So what I have done with my toddler when I have needed to clean up poop is say things like hands on your head, hands on your shoulders, hands on your ears, and just keep going through all of the different things. She loves to like quickly figure out what I'm gonna say next, and sometimes I'll switch it up really fast and kind of throw her off. And the biggest thing in all of this, and the reason that I do it, is because it keeps her hands away from this whole zone. Otherwise, I found that there would be times that there would be like reaching happening or trying to grab wipes or just interfering too much with what is going on with the poop. And so this has been like a life-saving game that has just saved me in those moments where I've really needed the focus to be literally anywhere else. We now know elbows, we know eyebrows, we know eyelashes, we know all of the things. So I definitely recommend that you guys try the hands on your blank game with your toddlers too. My next hack is another game that I created for my toddler to help specifically around getting dressed. Sometimes getting in or out of clothes can be a challenging moment for you and your toddler, especially if you are in a rush that day. And so the game is called Slither In, Slither Out, and basically we just pretend that we are snakes. That's as simple as it is, but I will have her slither into her shirt and basically just go like this, and then again when I lift up she will slither out of it. And it's just a silly kind of fun way to make a moment that could otherwise be a power struggle just something that is lighthearted and fun for you and your toddler. So that is the other game that I've created, is Slither In, Slither Out. The next hack is another tip that will make it a lot easier for you to get your toddler from point A to point B, and it's to ask them if they can hop, skip, or jump. Now you could do this in a variety of ways. You could add march to it, but essentially what we will say if we are having trouble getting her to like the bathroom or to the car is, can you hop to the car or can you jump to the car? It's another one of those things where you can just remove the power struggle by making it fun and silly for them. And so you can demonstrate what that looks like. You can kind of switch up the ways that you make that happen, but it can definitely become a fun little tradition and transition moment for you and your toddler when you just switch up the way that you are asking them to get from point A to point B. The next hack that I have for you guys is all about brushing teeth. Brushing teeth can be one of those things that is a struggle stressful every single night, every single morning, but I have found a way to make it easier for you, at least some of the time, and that is to use a character or an animal that your kids are interested in to get them to want to brush their teeth with you. An example of this is the Dinosaur teeth brushing game. Now, there was a season where dinosaurs is what it was all about for my toddler, and so as I was brushing her teeth, I would really play it up and say things like, I see a T-Rex back there, or I see a Stegosaurus up there. It was just a fun thing where my toddler would wait to see what I was going to say next. And basically, when the dinosaurs got old, we just switched up the characters. So we have done farm animals, we have done fairies in there, we've done unicorns in there, we've done characters from Frozen. Basically, just stick to whatever you know your toddler is super interested in. So you could see Paw Patrol characters are there, or Bluey characters in there, and you're trying to brush them all, and it's a fun game between you and your toddler. So that has made teeth brushing a lot easier for us. My next hack is something that we have been doing with our toddler since she was a baby, but I still stand by it and will continue to do it as long as my kids are playing with toys, and it is to introduce a toy rotation. Now, studies have shown that on average, most kids will only play with 10 toys or less from their entire collection of toys. And so starting a toy rotation really has so many benefits for your toddler. It will improve their opportunity to work on their focus. It will reduce clutter in your home. It will improve their creativity. I find that overall, it really does reduce toy overwhelm, but it also makes cleanup times way easier for you as a parent. The length of time that you go between a toy rotation is totally up to what makes sense for you and your family. Some people like to do it weekly, some people like to do it monthly. What I have found works for us is I do it more on like an every couple of weeks basis, and I rotate based on interest. So I won't necessarily go in and remove every single toy that my kids have been playing with over the last little bit, because if there is a toy on that shelf that they're still very interested in and I notice that they're playing with actively, I want to leave that out for them so they can keep working on that toy or that skill. So I would say that I take more of like an interest driven approach when it comes to toy rotation, and I can really attest to the fact that it does make play a lot more purposeful for my kids. When it comes to the toys that we use for our rotations, my kids and I are huge fans of the Kiwico Panda Crates, and that is why I am so excited to be working with them on today's video. Kiwico's Panda Crate is a subscription designed for infants and toddlers from 0 to 36 months, and each crate is tailored specifically to your child's developmental stage so that they can be learning new skills through play. Each crate contains 2 months worth of science-backed STEM toys and information for your child at that developmental stage. One thing that we have found is that the toys really do just build on each other, and recently we got the Panda Crate Plus, which came with additional products that are designed to grow with our baby. So we received this really awesome pop-up shape sorter puzzle that both of our kids have been playing with, as well as a car ramp that is so great for teaching things like cause and effect, problem solving, and more. Our 10-month-old Jude is currently playing with the Let's Explore crate for 7 to 12 months, and our toddler is playing with the Let's Look crate. And when I opened these crates, I was blown away. From the intentionality of every item that's included, to the durability and the quality of the toys, to the fact that I know these crates are going to lead to just countless hours of imaginative and creative play for my kids, it's honestly no surprise that the Kiwico team puts over 1,000 hours of research and testing into every crate that they produce. I really value investing in toys that I know are going to last and are going to have an impact on my children developmentally. For me, Kiwico takes the guesswork out of having to figure out what toys are right for my kids at the right times, and there is nothing more convenient than having affordable and age-appropriate toys dropped off on your doorstep every other month. If you are interested in trying out Kiwico for your infant or toddler, Kiwico has given me a special offer for viewers of my channel. So all you have to do is head to the link in my description box and use the code BETH at checkout to save 50% off of your first month. Kiwico Panda Crates have definitely been a hack for me when it comes to entertaining my toddler, so I'm super excited for you guys to check them out, and thank you so much to Kiwico for working with me on today's video. My next hack is something that I actually shared in my language tips for toddlers video that I will link here if you guys want to check it out. But if you have a toddler that is very active and busy and you are finding it tricky to actually sit and read with them, my hack is to introduce mealtime read alouds. Now, you can introduce this at a time that makes the most sense for your family, whether that is at the breakfast table in the morning, or at the lunch table if you're home with them during the day, or at the dinner table if both of those times earlier are too crazy for your family. I take the opportunity when my child is sitting and stationed in one spot for a little while to actually read with her and to to choose books that might be a little bit trickier for her to sit still for at another point in time. And I have found that this is a way that her language has just exploded over time, is because she's being introduced to new words and new concepts and new forms of storytelling over time through these mealtime read alouds. And so I highly recommend them if you have a child that you are finding is having a harder and harder time sitting still to read. This next hack I think will be especially helpful for any of my fellow girl moms, and for any of you that do your toddler girl's hair with those little tiny elastics that can be very tricky to get out. You don't need to pull any other products out. You don't need to get scissors. You don't need to cut your kid's hair off. This is all you need to try. So I've put an elastic in my hair to show you guys how I do this, because I don't know how else I would explain it. But this is something that I figured out literally on my own hair when I was a kid, because I found that it would be so hard to get these out. And so essentially what I will do is I won't just like pull down from here, because when you pull down on the elastic from the point where the elastic is, you're putting all of the tension on their scalp, and the hair is pulling from the scalp, which is painful for them. So what I do is I just pinch above where the elastic is, and I put the tension in a different spot. When you pinch right above the elastic and then you start to pull the elastic down from that spot, the tension is now coming from here, not my scalp. So I don't feel any of the tugging on my scalp anymore. I literally just feel the hair being held right there. So I just pulled that out without any pain, without any like pulling on my scalp specifically. And having a toddler girl just brought all of that back to my memory, because I remember doing that all the time as a kid and just finding that that was something that worked. And now that is the way that I get my toddler's elastics out every single night before bed. So I highly recommend testing that trick. All right, we've tackled a lot of the fun and lighthearted stuff. Let's dive into toddler tantrums, big feelings, and meltdowns. So say your toddler is already in a full-blown tantrum / meltdown. The first hack that I have to actually get out of that meltdown effectively is to connect and then direct. What you don't want to be doing when your toddler is having a meltdown is trying to tell them what you want them to do in that moment, or tell them what they are doing wrong, because a lot of the times their brain is just totally in another world in that moment, and what they actually need from you is connection, so that they can get themselves back to a point of being able to listen. And so for me, what that often looks like is getting down on my toddler's level, making eye contact, pulling her close if that's something that I can do, and then just verbally connecting with her to let her know that I understand she's having a hard time. As much as toddlers are toddlers, they're also human beings, and they want to know that their feelings are seen and validated, and that they're not too big for us. And so what I will often do is help name what she's feeling. So for example, if we are at a park and she's having a hard time leaving, I'll say something like, I hear that you really wish we could keep playing at the park right now. And then I will try to relate to her. So I'll say something like, I also have a really hard time leaving the things that I'm really enjoying. After that, when I feel that she's starting to calm a little bit, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time of just being present and relating and letting them know that you hear them, that is when I will then hold my boundary firm. So I'm not changing the boundary, we're still leaving the park. I'm just letting her know that I understand that that's a hard thing for her to do. And so I will say something like, it is still time for us to go, but maybe we can come back to the park tomorrow. This formula of connect and then direct, I have found to be so helpful for our family, and I hope it can be helpful for you guys too. My next hack when it comes to tantrums and meltdowns is to address them in private. Now, this is not always an easy thing to do. Sometimes it is happening in a shopping mall. Been there, done that. But what I recommend is getting to as private of a space as possible, even if that means you need to go out to your car, or you need to bring your child into a quiet hallway, or just away from a lot of the people are. There's a couple of reasons for this, and the first is just that if you put yourself in their shoes, if you were having this really big outburst of emotions and you were being corrected in that, you would probably not want that to happen in front of every single person. You would probably want to have that happen in private. It is less stimulating for them. It gives you an opportunity to kind of lower your voice and get yourself to a calm space, and also just look them eye to eye and resolve the issue instead of doing it in a large public area. My next toddler hack is about meltdown prevention, and it is to tell them what you want them to do instead of what you don't want them to do. There have been many times and many days where I've caught myself and I literally have only said things that are correction to my toddler for like the last hours. And it's so important for us to also be telling them what we want them to do and actually modeling more of that instead of always just pulling them back from what we don't want them to do and saying no. Really simple example of this is around bath time. So if you're noticing that a lot of the water is coming out of the tub, instead of always saying, don't pour that, don't do that, stop splashing, saying something like water stays in the tub, and then showing them the ways that they can play with the water in the tub by pouring something or doing something on their level is a better way than always just saying, no, stop doing that. Same thing when it comes to coloring and colors getting on tables and walls and everything other than where you want it to be. What I often say to my toddler is that the colors stay on paper and show her what that looks like. And if that boundary is crossed, I take it away right away so she knows that I mean what I say. Now, say that you have just come out of a catastrophic meltdown or your child is just very overstimulated, the emotions are high. My recommendation is to do a toddler reset, either outside or with water. There is something that is just grounding about being outside in nature and having your toes in the grass or going for a walk. And there's also something grounding about being able to play with water. So whether that's deciding to do a bath in the middle of the day or setting up a little sensory table with a storage bin that you have. I have always just found that when I really need to shift the mood and get my toddler to a different state mentally, that either going outside or playing with water has been an amazing hack to do that. My next hack is kind of related, but it's more of a product, and it's to get yourself a catch-all mat. What I mean by this is some sort of reusable mat that you can put under your toddler that you can use for things like sensory play, water play, craft times, or meal times on the go. I already spend enough time as it is cleaning up underneath high chairs and booster chairs during the day, and so I actually invested in this like big circle mat from Gather, and I know Gather can be on the more expensive side and there's gotta be more affordable dupes for something like this, but essentially it's just a mat that you can put under your kids to kind of contain their messes, and then when they're done you just fold the whole thing up, shake it outside, and the mess is not on your floor. So for me, when it comes to things like activities that I want to do with my toddler, the mess that it would make was one of the barriers for me, and having a catch-all mat has really just freed me up to feel like I can mentally handle whatever is going to fall on the floor during that time. My next toddler hack is to create a toddler wallet. Now, this is something that will keep your toddler entertained when you are going out with them, whether you are waiting in a line or you are out at a restaurant. And essentially, you just take one of your old wallets that you're not using anymore, you put in some cards that you are not using that your toddler can play with. And I filled my daughter's with things like play money, a notepad, a crayon, some little stickers, just things that we can bring out when I know we are going to need a little bit of entertainment, but I don't want it to be too over the top in what we're bringing. And so this tiny little wallet, I find her carrying around the house all the time. It's become something that she's really used in her own independent playtime, but it's also a great hack if you are looking for some entertainment on the go. Next hack is for any parents that have a toddler that is particularly loud. So you are noticing loud shrieking or screaming or singing at the top of their lungs, which is what we often hear. And it is to tell your toddler to match your voice. So essentially what you are doing is kind of turning this into a game for them. And instead of saying to be quiet, be quiet, be quiet all the time, or to use your inside voice, using the voice that you want them to then use back to you. So you could even just do this in a very conversational voice like this, like, hey, can you match my voice, and see if they can do that. But oftentimes I will start down in a whisper to make it more interesting and kind of just let it get back to normal from there. So I will say something like, can you sing like this? And see if my toddler can do that, which I find just helps to cut some of the noise in the house, because we all know how overstimulating that can be. Next hack is around cleaning toddler toys. Now, if you have any toys that are plastic or things that will often get wet, one of the things that I discovered was so much easier than trying to just like hand clean and sanitize those things is actually running them through the dishwasher on the sanitized setting. In our playroom, a lot of our toys are wood, so this doesn't necessarily work for those, but when it comes to the bath toys specifically, I find that because they'll get a buildup of like shampoo and soap on them over time, they get a little bit grimy, and I was really annoyed with having to hand wash all of them. And so what I now do is actually just throw them into the dishwasher on a sanitized setting, and it makes my life 10 times easier. All right, we have 3 more tips, and the next one is to have car seat specific toys. Now, I have a whole bunch of content when it comes to toddler travel specifically, so if you're looking for tips around toddler travel on things like airplanes or long car rides, I will link some of those in the description box in here. But one really simple hack that I found, even for just driving in the car around like the area that we live in, is having toys that are specific to the car. So So these are toys that do not come into our house, but they are toys that are very interesting for my toddler to have when we are on the go. So for example, we have this little like digital drawing pad that she just presses a button to erase everything, and it's got like a little pencil that doesn't color anywhere else, but it does color on the little like tablet thing. And so she loves to have that in the car. It stays in the car, so it's one less toy in our house, and it really does make the transition into the car a lot easier for us. My final 2 hacks will make bedtime so much easier for you as a toddler parent. And the first hack is to engage in some sort of roughhouse play before bed. Now, what I mean by roughhouse play is anything like climbing, rolling around, jumping, wrestling, being literally flipped upside down. My husband has always naturally done this with our kids before they go to bed at night, and at first I always used to be like, don't rile them up, like we need to bring them down and relax them before bed. But what I later discovered is that this is actually so good for your toddler. It releases any energy that is left over from the day. It helps to regulate their bodies and emotions. It's a great sensory input for them, and it's also a great bonding opportunity for you and your kids. So next time you see a roughhouse play before bed, or your kid wants to engage in it, do it. I promise you they will actually fall asleep more quickly, and they will sleep more soundly through the night if you engage in roughhouse play. I saved, in my opinion, the best hack for last, because this is something that we have introduced over the past couple of weeks with our toddler, and it has made bedtime so much easier, and it is to introduce something called squeezies. Now, I will explain what that means, but essentially if you have a child that is always moving or is very active, or you would consider to be like wild, a lot of the time they just need more of something that is called a sensory input. Some examples of sensory seeking activities that you might notice your toddler doing are things like climbing and jumping and biting, or putting things that are not food in their mouths. And so there are different ways that you can actually help your toddler receive these types of sensory inputs, like creating an obstacle course for them, or giving them Play-Doh that they can squeeze in their hands. And one of the things that we were noticing with our toddler before bed is that there was just like a need to release the pressure that was still in her body from the day. And so what we discovered was something called squeezies. And what we will do is have her lay with the covers over her, and essentially we will just squeeze every part very gently, not like too hard, but we will squeeze her hands, we'll squeeze her tummy, we'll squeeze her toes. And we do this every single night as kind of like a sensory regulating experience for her before bed. And we have found that it has just been like a game changer for her to actually settle and calm before going to sleep at night. So if you also have a child that is very active and on the move, I highly recommend looking into sensory activities and sensory input for toddlers, but also introducing something like squeezies before bed. Well, that is all of the toddler hacks that I have for you guys. I am not like an expert in raising toddlers yet. I'm still very new to it, but these are just some of the different tips and tricks that I have kind of pulled together along the way. So give yourself a pat on the back for just keeping yourself calm and grounded so that you can model what that looks like to your kids, because that's not an easy thing to do. But also remind yourself, as much as it's hard to parent a toddler, it's also hard to be a toddler. As often as you can, try and put yourself back into those shoes of being little again, and not being able to fully voice your frustrations or your feelings, or actually communicate the things that you want. And on top of that, you also can't regulate your emotions. I am literally 27 years old and still have a hard time regulating my emotions myself. So give yourself grace, give your toddler grace. Remember that they are new to this world, and you are helping them to make sense of it all, and you are doing a great job. So I hope that you're able to enjoy watching them go through all of the exciting toddler milestones, gaining new independence, seeing their language skills develop, and I hope that some of these hacks can help you as you parent your toddler every day. I wanted to remind you guys that if you wanted to check out Kiwico's Panda Crates for your infant or your toddler, that you can head to the link in my description box to find the link for that. Thank you again to Kiwico for working with me on this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until my next video, I love you guys, I'm praying for you guys, and I will see you soon.